No charges, no indictment, qualified immunity. The agent who fired walks free. The family gets a lawsuit. Is this justice or protection?
5:34 a.m. Hennepin County, Minnesota. The temperature sat at 7 degrees. Ice fog hung across Interstate 494 like a curtain. Visibility reduced to 23 feet. Inside a silver Honda Accord heading eastbound, 31-year-old Marcus Williams adjusted his heater, unaware that 4 immigration and customs enforcement vehicles were tracking his position. What happened in the next 90 seconds would leave one American citizen dead on frozen asphalt, ignite protests in 11 cities, and expose an enforcement operation so riddled with errors that federal investigators would later call it a catastrophic failure of protocol. One bullet. 15 seconds of chaos. A citizen killed by his own government. Let me show you what really unfolded in that pre-dawn fog, and why the official narrative collapsed under scrutiny. Hit like so this story reaches more people who need to know the truth. Marcus Williams was not supposed to be on that highway. He was not on any target list. His name appeared in no databases, no investigative files, no surveillance reports. Born at Regions Hospital in St. Paul on March 8, 1994, Marcus had lived his entire life in Minnesota. He worked as an insurance adjuster for Allstate. He coached youth basketball at the YMCA in Bloomington. He had a 6-year-old daughter who waited every morning by the window to wave as he left for work. On the morning of January 16, 2026, he was driving to an early shift meeting, listening to a podcast about financial planning, thinking about his daughter's upcoming birthday party. He had no idea he was about to become a casualty of Operation Frozen Shield. The operation had been designed to target a human trafficking network operating between Minnesota, North Dakota, and Canada. ICE Homeland Security Investigations had spent 4 months building a case against 17 individuals suspected of smuggling undocumented migrants across the northern border, housing them in deplorable conditions, and forcing them into labor at agricultural facilities and meat processing plants across the upper Midwest. The network had moved an estimated 230 people in the previous 18 months, collecting between $8,000 and $15,000 per person. The revenue exceeded $4 million. The human cost was incalculable. Federal warrants were issued for simultaneous arrests at 14 locations. The tactical briefing at 3 a.m. outlined the targets, their vehicles, their known associates, and protocols for engagement. Target 7 was identified as Jamal Hassan, a 34-year-old logistics coordinator suspected of arranging transport and housing. Surveillance indicated Hassan drove a silver Honda Accord, Minnesota license plate starting with DHG. He lived in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood and typically departed for work between 5:15 and 5:45 a.m. The plan was to intercept his vehicle on Interstate 494 near the Bloomington Avenue exit, execute a felony traffic stop, and take him into custody with minimal public exposure. What the briefing did not include was updated intelligence. Hassan had sold his Honda Accord 3 weeks earlier. The vehicle had been purchased by a dealership in Burnsville, then resold to Marcus Williams on January 3rd. The title transfer had been processed, but the information had not yet populated in the cross-referenced databases ICE agents were using. The license plate had been changed. The vehicle looked identical. Same year, same color, same model, different owner, different life, different fate. Comment justice if you believe what happened next was preventable. At 5:31 a.m., an ICE surveillance unit spotted the silver Honda Accord merging onto Interstate 494 from Cedar Avenue. The agent radioed the tactical team. Target vehicle identified. Moving eastbound. Prepare for intercept. 3 ICE vehicles accelerated into position. A Minnesota State Patrol unit joined the formation for jurisdictional support. The helicopter providing aerial oversight had been grounded due to fog. The backup plan relied on vehicle-mounted cameras and agent body cameras. 2 of the 4 body cameras would later be found to have malfunctioned due to extreme cold. The tactical team leader, Agent Derek Paulson, a 9-year ICE veteran, gave the order. Execute stop. The vehicles converged with lights activated. The Honda's brake lights flashed. Marcus began to slow, moving toward the right shoulder. Traffic was light. Visibility was almost non-existent. The fog transformed headlights into diffused halos, shapes without definition. Marcus pulled onto the shoulder and stopped. He placed the vehicle in park. He turned off the ignition. He placed both hands on the steering wheel, exactly as his father had taught him during driver's education lessons when he was 16 years old. Four agents exited their vehicles. Weapons drawn. Commands shouted through the fog. Show your hands. Exit the vehicle. Keep your hands visible. Do not move. The orders overlapped, contradicted, echoed through frozen air. Marcus sat frozen, hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding, trying to understand why armed agents were surrounding his vehicle. He had done nothing wrong. He was on his way to work. This had to be a mistake. Agent Paulson approached the driver's side door. Agent Nicole Chen moved to the passenger side. Two additional agents positioned themselves at the rear corners of the vehicle. The protocol was clear. Verify identity before escalation. But the fog made recognition impossible. Paulson could barely see Marcus through the window. He shouted for Marcus to lower the window. Marcus complied, his right hand moving slowly from the steering wheel to the window control. The window descended 3 inches. What happened next would be reconstructed from dash camera footage, body camera recordings, ballistic analysis, and 17 witness statements. Agent Chen, positioned on the passenger side, claimed she saw movement inside the vehicle that appeared consistent with reaching for an object. She shouted, "Gun, gun, gun." The word cut through the fog like a blade. Agent Paulson, operating on reflexive training ingrained through thousands of hours of tactical scenarios, interpreted the shout as confirmation of imminent threat. His weapon was already drawn. His finger moved to the trigger. He fired twice through the driver's side window. Both rounds struck Marcus in the upper torso. One pierced his left lung. The other severed his subclavian artery. He slumped forward against the steering wheel, blood spreading across his gray winter coat. Agent Paulson yanked the door open, weapon still raised, shouting commands at a man who could no longer hear them. 3 seconds later, the team realized there was no weapon. 5 seconds later, Agent Chen found Marcus's work badge on the passenger seat, photo ID clearly visible. 8 seconds later, someone said the words that would haunt the investigation. "Wrong guy. Wrong car. American citizen." The call went out at 5:37 a.m. Officer involved shooting. Subject down. Paramedics arrived in 4 minutes. They pronounced Marcus Williams dead at the scene at 5:49 a.m. The notification team arrived at his home at 6:52 a.m. His wife, Jennifer, was preparing their daughter's breakfast. She saw the uniforms through the window. She knew. She dropped the plate. It shattered on the kitchen floor. Their daughter asked why Mommy was screaming. Type yes if you believe his family deserves answers the government has refused to provide. The investigation that followed exposed failures at every level. The vehicle identification had relied on outdated databases. No real-time verification was conducted before the intercept. The tactical briefing included a photograph of Jamal Hassan that agents never cross-referenced with the driver before giving orders. The fog conditions should have triggered protocols for enhanced identification measures. Those protocols were not followed. The shout of gun was determined to be a misidentification. Agent Chen had seen Marcus reaching for his wallet, which he kept in the center console. In the fog, through tinted glass, she interpreted the movement as reaching for a weapon. No weapon existed. The Honda Accord contained Marcus's laptop, his lunch, a basketball for afternoon practice, and a birthday card for his daughter he had purchased the day before. The deeper investigation revealed that Operation Frozen Shield had been compromised before it began. The primary targets, including Jamal Hassan, had been tipped off by a source inside the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. That source, later identified as intelligence analyst Robert Lindstrom, had accepted $12,000 to provide advance warning of enforcement operations. His last message, sent at 11 p.m. on January 15th, warned the network that raids were imminent. By dawn, 11 of the 17 targets had fled. Hassan crossed into Canada through an unmonitored rural crossing point near Pembina, North Dakota. The operation that cost Marcus Williams his life arrested 6 individuals, none of whom were primary targets of the investigation. Federal prosecutors filed charges against Lindstrom for corruption and obstruction. He pleaded guilty and received a 4-year sentence. The human trafficking network reconstituted operations in Iowa and South Dakota within 3 months. ICE suspended Agent Paulson pending criminal investigation. A grand jury declined to indict him, citing the chaotic conditions, the false report of a weapon, and qualified immunity protections. The Department of Justice opened a civil rights investigation that remains ongoing. Marcus's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit seeking $33 million. The numbers told a story the official statements tried to obscure. This was the fourth officer-involved shooting by ICE agents in Minnesota in 3 years. It was the second case of mistaken identity. It was the seventh operation where outdated intelligence led to targeting errors. Internal reviews identified systemic problems with database management, interagency communication, and tactical protocols for low-visibility conditions. Recommendations were drafted. Training modules were proposed. Policy revisions were discussed. Marcus Williams remained dead. Share this video so more people understand what happens when enforcement prioritizes speed over accuracy. The community response was immediate and sustained. Protests erupted outside the ICE field office in Bloomington, the federal courthouse in Minneapolis, and the state capitol in St. Paul. The Minnesota legislature introduced bills requiring independent oversight of federal enforcement operations, mandating body camera functionality checks before tactical operations, and establishing a civilian review board for all federal use of force incidents within state borders. Law enforcement organizations opposed the legislation as interference with federal authority. The bills died in committee. Marcus's daughter turned 7 years old on February 4, 2026. Her birthday party, planned weeks in advance, became a memorial gathering. 73 people attended. His basketball team wore black armbands for the rest of the season. The YMCA established a scholarship fund in his name. His insurance clients sent flowers, cards, and donations totaling $47,000 to support his family. None of it brought him back. The investigation into the human trafficking network eventually led to 23 arrests across 4 states. Federal prosecutors secured convictions against 14 individuals. Sentences ranged from 6 to 18 years. Over 100 victims were identified and provided access to legal services and victim assistance programs. The operation was declared a success by ICE leadership at a press conference in April 2026. Marcus Williams was not mentioned. What they uncovered was not justice. It was the cost of a system that prioritizes action over accuracy, numbers over nuance, enforcement over humanity. Behind the official statements, something darker was revealed. A federal agency operating with insufficient oversight, outdated technology, and protocols that placed agents and civilians in situations where mistakes became fatal. This was not an isolated tragedy. This was a predictable outcome of systemic dysfunction. The line between protecting communities and destroying them had been erased on that frozen highway. Trust inside institutions collapsed. Faith in accountability evaporated. And across Minnesota, families who looked like Marcus Williams began to fear the very agencies meant to serve them. That fear was not irrational. It was evidence-based. It was survival instinct in a system where being in the wrong vehicle, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, could be lethal. If this story revealed something that shocked you, comment accountability below. Hit like if you believe families deserve truth when enforcement goes wrong. Subscribe so you stay informed about operations that affect real lives in real communities. This is only the beginning. The systems that failed Marcus Williams are still operating. The protocols that led to his death have not fundamentally changed. And somewhere in America tonight, another family may be seconds away from the same nightmare. The fight for justice continues. The demand for reform continues. And the memory of Marcus Williams, a father who did everything right and died for it, refuses to be forgotten.